I love that you're bridging the gap between legacy and generational wealth for your children.
Once you're in the light, it's a lot. And I hesitated bringing my kids in this space because they're going to have to learn that people are going to hate them just for the fact that they're doing something.
Exactly.
You know, and their dad did something. And people think, you know, I posted something about their podcast, and one lady put, oh, now we got to talk about rich kids, talk about life struggles and this, and that. And I'm just like, you don't even know my kids. You know what I mean? But that's the kind of stuff they're going to have to prepare themselves for. So like I said, I've stepped into space with them very cautiously because mental health is a big thing. And all the negativity that we face on social media on a daily basis, as a 40-year-old man, I can handle it. But sometimes I still lash back. So as a 12-year-old, I want to prepare them to, you know, what's ahead of them. And I've been trying to do a good job of that.
So about that, to the family man, how are you educating your kids on being a part of the business? So I know the podcast being in front of the camera is cool because they have personalities, they see their dad, but how are you educating them about the business side of things?
Owning their own. You know what I mean? I think that's the one thing I'm self-financing all their projects so that, you know, they own it. You know what I mean? Like, I was fortunate enough to be lucky to team up with Showtime, but at the end of the day, I don't own as dope as my podcast is. It's Showtime's 50% of that podcast is Showtime's. You know what I mean? So with the situation with the twins is they're going to own theirs. You know what I mean? So from the time they're 12 until the time they don't want to do it no more, like, that's going to be their podcast. So I'm just teaching them ownership and understanding the dollar and understanding that everyone is not as fortunate as they are. You know, like I said, I grew up with no money, so I would wear shoes until there was holes in the bottom of my shoes, and I wouldn't get shoes until the hole was big enough that my sock came out, and then my sock started getting holes. Like, that's when it was time to get new shoes. Now my kids have more shoes than me, you know, so I really kind of still try to make them understand, like, we do a lot of giving back, you know, when they outgrow shoes or don't like shoes they get, you know, we donate them. Same with clothes, same with toys, and just kind of keeping them grounded because they'll never go through what I went through. They'll never go through two parents being on drugs. They'll never go through food stamps or living with family or having friends or cousins live with, like, they live behind gates and go to private schools. And at the same time, a lot of responsibility comes back to me and their mom as far as letting them know, keeping them level-headed and grounded and realizing how fortunate they are. But at the same time, also taking advantage of their situations. You know, like I said, I think I took my time getting them in this entertainment space, but, you know, we're fortunate enough to where I can fund their endeavors or their projects, and so they'll have ownership of their projects. So just kind of teaching them at an early age what business is like and what making money means. And because I was never taught, I learned on the fly, and I think that's why my first 5 years there was no money in the account at the end of the summer, you know. So that's something that, you know, in the back of my mind will never happen to them.
So we can touch on that briefly because you said you had to take out a lot of advances. So did you accumulate a lot of debt? I'm just
No,
curious.
so what the advances were, they would be like, it'd be advance on my checks. So they would just give me an early piece of my check. So when it was time for the checks to start coming, they just wouldn't be as big as they would have normally been. So it wasn't, I never,
You didn't do the credit card and all that.
I did, what did everyone do? The Discover card back in the day, but my parents messed that up and had me having bad credit before I was even in college. My parents had a Discover card in my name and ran that thing up. So I started behind the 8 ball with credit, you know, and I'm 40 years old now and in the process of really kind of still fixing my credit and understanding the importance of credit, you know. So that was something that I didn't know nothing about. My parents just had a new Discover card and we were getting cool stuff, so I wasn't tripping. You know what I mean? Not knowing that
it was all coming in your name.
Not knowing it was in my name and wasn't
My
being
mom did
paid.
it the same way, don't worry.
Wasn't being paid back, you know. But like I said, that's just stuff that you live and you learn and you have an understanding. My parents did the best they could. You know, I was able to beat the odds and make it, you know what I mean? So I'm building, you know, my kids' foundation is going to be a lot more solid and have a lot more understanding of what to expect and what's ahead.
Do you specifically mentor any young athletes that are currently playing?
Yes, guys call me a lot, whether it be before this new drug policy, like, hey, what can I take to get this out of my system, to, hey, if I do smoke this, when will it come out of my system? So I've got stuff like that. But then again, I've got people that want to, you know, athletes that, hey, can I come shadow at all the smoke? You know, can I come sit in on the set? And obviously with the pandemic, that makes it tough. But, you know, I just want to, you know, completely be transparent. I mean, because what's the point of learning everything and succeeding in this space if you don't give back? I think it's terrible when people a cell to a certain height, but do like this. And I think as Black and brown people, we do that because we came from nothing. So I'm not trusting my money or anything else with no one because I came from nothing and I'm not going back to that. But once I think you kind of get out of your own way and get out of that mindset, realizing that, I have a gift and I was able to play, I have the best job in the world for 15 years, but I feel like my second act is just as exciting and will be bigger than my first act. So to me, everything I soak up from friends and people I admire, I try to give right back, especially to my kids, but to really to anyone who asks, I'll go in my DMs and have, questions from young superstars in the league.
Wait, you're actually responding to your own DMs?
Yeah, sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, when I see it, there'll be, some of these young up and coming stars in the NBA, like, yo, how can I start a podcast, or, how can I invest in cannabis without no one knowing, or how can I do this, how can I do that? So, if there's any time I can drop game to these younger players or people in general, like I said, the dude that came over last night was a former college athlete that didn't make it, and now he wants to do clothing and music and all this kind of stuff, and we kind of sat down and made a game plan for him. So, to me, if I can help, that's at the end of the day, it's, my life is about how many lives can I affect along the way, because I'm headed to the top regardless of anyone who's trying to stop me. So how many people could I bring with me? How many doors can I open for someone else?
Well, that's what this show is about, and I really appreciate you sharing all of your stories and knowledge with me, because that helps us give back and really educate the communities that we come from.
Yeah, I think it's cool. I think that the key to education is, I think people too often talk at people or down to people. And I think what I found is going to their level and then bringing them up with you. You know what I mean? You have to make education fun now, no matter what you think. Like the old boring textbook stuff is out the way. Like you have to be able to relate to kids and adults the same. You know what I mean? Like I said, you can't, and it's funny because I learned that coaching my kids. Like I'm 6'8". When I first started coaching my kids, they're 9 years old, they're this big. So I'm 6'8". I can't be way down here telling them something. So I used to get down on my knee and look at them eye to eye and kind of be like, okay, this is what I need you to do. And I just saw them like they would come with me, and I realized that adults need that too. You know what I mean? You can't just talk. Sometimes these words are too big and people are afraid to raise their hand. You know what I mean? So just sit down and kind of go to their level and understand like, okay, hey, what's your game plan? All right, well, come with me. I'm gonna show you how to do it. So I think communication is key. Your delivery is key. Like that vulnerability. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to genius ask questions. There's no dumb questions. So I think to kind of, if you want something enough, you'll do what it takes to get it.